The Nintendo Switch 2 is finally here, and with it comes various updates to games that originally came out on the first Nintendo Switch or are coming out in the near future for both consoles. While several of these games are paid Nintendo Switch 2 upgrades that mostly offer improved resolutions and smoother frame rates, there are a handful of other Nintendo Switch games that are getting a free performance update. Most notably on this list is Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet, which notoriously have been plagued with performance issues since launch in 2022. I'm not slowing this footage down, this is literally how the game runs in several areas on the original Nintendo Switch. So after getting my Nintendo Switch 2 at the midnight launch in Sydney last night, I haven't gone to bed yet by the way, the very first thing I wanted to test was how well do these Scarlet and Violet upgrades actually run. Specifically, I want to test the most laggiest areas you can find in Paldea, Kitakami, and the Blueberry Academy, and see how much the frame rates and resolutions have improved. Now for this video, I've upgraded my old Elgato HD 60S Plus capture card I've used in all my previous videos to the more up-to-date Elgato 4KX. And for the first time ever on my YouTube channel, I'm editing and uploading this video in 4K 60fps, so definitely try and watch this video in that format on as big a screen as possible. But with that, let's get to it. The obvious place to start first is the title screen. The load times here have literally halved, around about 10 seconds for the Switch 2, while the original Switch was about 20. I won't show the full 20 seconds here, but trust me, it's long.
The first part of the game that I wanted to test was South Province Area 1. And even though it's one of the very first areas of the game, I forgot just how laggy it actually is. Look at this side arc as we cross the bridge, horrible. However, as you can see here on the Nintendo Switch 2, the frame rate has improved dramatically. If you put the footage from both consoles side by side, it is very noticeable. And of course, if your character is standing still, you won't be using as many resources, but as you can see here with the Switch 2, even when you're standing still, the frame rate is a lot smoother, which is very welcome after nearly 3 years of playing this game. The next area is Mesagoza, which is one of the very few areas of the game that has its own loading zone. Playing on the original Switch, I didn't actually have any issues with this area, but as you can see here with the Switch 2, it is very noticeable when you compare them side by side. It's also been quite obvious in the past when flying around Mesagoza that the outside world is a 2D texture and doesn't really have complete geometry, which is made even more clearer on the Switch 2. You can see the Elite Four building in the background here, which is just a 2D texture. Another big city which is actually part of the main overworld is Levincia, which has always been laggy, specifically in the middle, but of course the Nintendo Switch 2 makes easy work of this. And if we stand on this main building here and pan around, the difference is very obvious. Game Freak though still hasn't fixed the broken camera, where you can clip into any wall or building by holding ZL. Next is Artisan, which has notoriously always been laggy, specifically if you're aiming the camera directly at it. Just like the other towns so far, the Nintendo Switch 2 makes easy work of this. But that's not what we want to find out. What we want to know is, have they improved the windmill frame rate? To save on resources on the original Nintendo Switch, the windmill either didn't spin at all if you're too far away from it, or only spin at a low frame rate when you're kind of near it. However, on the Nintendo Switch 2, it's as smooth as butter. Just look at how glorious it finally is. And of course, a side-by-side view really shows off the difference here. Even if you look at the windmill from the same spot inside the town here, it's still very noticeable. Next up is Asado Desert. While this area isn't really that bad on the Nintendo Switch unless there's a sandstorm, the difference in frame rate and resolution is still very noticeable on the Nintendo Switch 2. It's also good to see the weird shaking wild Pokemon effect finally patched. Look at this Grey Tusk. Next up is one of the most laggiest places you'll ever find in this game, Casseroya Lake. Now, as most of you might know, if you ever go on the water here, you're gonna have a bad time. Just look how bad the frame rate is. How do they ever get away with this? But again, easy work for the Nintendo Switch 2, even with the increased spawns we now get. If you haven't already noticed, the spawns have risen from 15 on screen to about 30. And this isn't just on the water, even on the side of the lake here, you can still see the frames are horrible on the Switch 1, while on the Switch 2, the frame rate is again a lot smoother. And if you're liking these side-by-side comparisons, this one is extremely noticeable. And again, I don't like bashing this game, but it is very easy to do so when you see this side-by-side. Next is the Team Star Ferry Base, which is located in the very north of the map. Again, very jumpy on the Switch 1, while the Switch 2 is very much improved. Here's the running animation for both side by side. This is also where I compared the frame rate of the map at the start of the video. As you can see here, very choppy on the Switch 1, while on the Switch 2 it it is finally smooth to pan around. Paldea's highest peak on top of Glacido Mountain is, as you'd expect, smoother on the Switch 2 over the Switch 1. The difference in frame rate while you're flying around the top of Paldea here is also very noticeable. We still never did find out what the purpose of this giant rock was. Next up is North Province Area 2, or more simply the Bamboo Forest. And for an area so simple, this has always notoriously been laggy. But of course, Nintendo Switch 2, 60 frames per second, 4K, you can't go wrong. And if you want to see a side-by-side comparison, well, here you go. Sadly though, I didn't get a full-on shiny while getting footage on the Switch 2. I love a good shiny Swablu. And of course, no Scarlet or Violet lag video would be complete without the Tagtree Thicket. This is hands down the worst place in Paldea for lag, even more than Casseroya Lake. Just look how terrible this is. This is at most 20 frames, maybe even 15 per second. Look, I get it, it's a new console, it's obviously going to be more powerful, but even I was surprised at how well the Tagtree Thicket runs on Switch 2. It is incredible. Panning around here on the Switch 2 while standing still, you wouldn't even think there was ever lag to begin with. And of course, the side-by-side comparison, the difference in lag is night and day. Diving into Area 0, the difference is easy to notice. You got your increased spawns and draw distance of Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, running around here on the Switch 1 is going to be more laggier than on the Switch 2, which is far more smoother. Yeeting yourself off the edge and diving through the clouds into the cavern below is seamless. And of course, panning around here in several locations is obviously going to be smoother on the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1. But it's still beautiful nonetheless.
Now, the loading times for flying to different maps has also been improved on the Switch 2. It only takes about 3 seconds now to go from Paldea to Kitakami. Very quick. Now, in terms of Kitakami, there are a few areas where lag has previously been an issue. In the apples here is a good example of that. But cliche, of course, on the Switch 2, very, very, very smooth. It's always good to test the differences when you're on water, specifically here in the north of the map, and also panning around here in the forest in the northeast of the map is also very smooth. The laggiest area in Kitakami, which was in fact the very first bit of footage I got for this video, is the Crystal Pool. It's laggy on the original Switch when you pan the camera around on the side of the water, and of course it's also laggy on the water. But on Switch 2, it is very smooth, very surprising as well, given the fact it was such a laggy area on the first Switch. But of course, Switch 2 makes it look easy. Just look at how many Yanma have spawned here. Amazing. Again, more Pokemon can now spawn in and at a greater distance. And of course, here's the side-by-side comparison. Very smooth on the right, very laggy on the left. And finally, we have the Blueberry Academy. Obviously, the coastal biome here has water, which is sometimes laggy, as is this area where you can find Meloetta, sometimes very laggy as well. The Savannah biome's been improved, and obviously it's very smooth, and more Pokemon are spawning here as well. And there's the muddy areas, where on the Switch 1, there was a lot of lag nearby there, while on the Switch 2, of course, there's none at all. Being on the water in the canyon biome has also improved, very smooth here. You can also see a Caesar way off in the distance on the right there, which was impossible on the Switch 1. Panning around on top of the canyon biome, you can see very smooth. Didn't realize it was that laggy on the original Switch, now looking at these two side by side. The same goes for the top of the polar biome, which is very smooth on the right, very laggy on the left, as is being on the water at the foot of the mountain. If we try and fly to the top of the terrarium on the Switch 1, you can see very laggy indeed. Switch 2, better, but not perfect. It still seems a tiny bit jumpy, but, you know, it is what it is. And the same thing goes when you try and free fall from the very top down to the very bottom. And just for a laugh, you can still clip underneath Paldea if you want to in version 4.0.0. And funnily enough, even this runs better on the Nintendo Switch 2. Why you would ever want to come down here, I don't know. It's very creepy and it's very glitchy as well, so be careful. And that's it. What do you think of the update? Is it worth it? Should it have been like this from the start? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you're new, feel free to like and subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more Pokemon and Nintendo content. My name's highly Instagram, but you can call me Matt, and as always, may all your shiny hunts be quick. Take care.